Africa is often spoken of as a land full of hidden promise, overflowing with minerals, sunlight, culture, and intelligence. Yet for a long time, very few managed to actually figure out how to release that promise. Until one man, once brushed aside as only another dreamer from Zimbabwe, began to change the story. He found a way, not only to build inventions, but to unlock Africa's hidden wealth. His name is Maxwell Chikumbutso, and here are the astonishing things he did that shifted everything. He solved a local issue before thinking global. Instead of chasing international headlines first, Maxwell turned inward. He didn't look toward Wall Street or Silicon Valley. He looked directly at the blackouts and power cuts hurting his own neighborhood. While many people waited for unstable grids or foreign aid, he built a generator in his backyard that powered itself. It wasn't just another device. It was a statement. Africa didn't need to copy progress from outside. It could make it right at home. That single creation became the seed of something much larger, a philosophy of solving African problems first before the world. He refused the normal energy path. While big corporations invested billions into coal, gas, and lithium, Maxwell chose a different road. He stepped away from all of that and started experimenting with clean, wireless, off-grid energy. He wasn't only building electricity. He was fighting to give Africa its independence in energy. The result was his green power machine, able to run homes without solar panels, without fuel, without batteries. Many engineers still say this cannot be done. But to Maxwell, it was never just about science. It was about freedom. He transformed rejection into power. When he first showed his machines, Western investors laughed. The media ignored him. Even universities refused to test his designs. But Maxwell used that rejection as strength. It became his proof that he didn't need Western approval. Instead, he turned to Africa's young people, mentoring them, opening labs in rural towns, and turning forgotten villages into centers of creativity. He understood that Africa's real wealth was not only its minerals, but its young minds. He worked with the continent, not just countries. Most people chase deals with single governments. Maxwell thought bigger. He pushed for Pan-African cooperation. He believed no country could rise alone, but a connected Africa could stand strong in any industry, from electric vehicles to energy grids. He visited schools in Ghana, spoke at forums in Nigeria, partnered with engineers in Kenya, and tested his ideas across many places. This wasn't just business. It was a movement. And in that movement, he discovered something global investors often overlook: the unstoppable momentum of an entire continent. He let Africa control its own story. Maxwell noticed something important. The West always wants to tell Africa's story in its own way, but he didn't want to be called Africa's Elon Musk. He wanted to be Maxwell Chikumbutso on his own terms. So, he stopped chasing approval abroad. He opened his labs to African reporters, hosted public exhibitions, and made his creations available not only to billionaires, but also to everyday villagers. The result was simple: a wave of trust, pride, and belief in African people as the true power behind the continent's wealth. He released part of the future for free. In a world full of patents, lawsuits, and billion-dollar barriers, Maxwell did the unexpected. He quietly released one of his device blueprints to the public. It wasn't his strongest design, but it was enough to spark a fire. Young builders from Ethiopia to Senegal began making versions of their own. Some improved on it, others started new companies from it. Maxwell wasn't just producing devices anymore. He was building an ecosystem. He knew if even one African child could copy his idea, the continent would never be the same. He secretly built a new communication web. While news focused on his electric cars and energy systems, Maxwell was quietly creating something more ambitious: a wireless, decentralized, off-grid communication network powered by the same energy sources his devices used. No satellites, no big towers, just peer-to-peer encrypted communication fully under Africa's control. Because in Maxwell's eyes, data was the new wealth. If Africa could own its own data pipelines, it could control digital finance, AI, and more. This wasn't only innovation, it was sovereignty. He invested in restoring land. Unlike many tech leaders chasing tall buildings and big factories, Maxwell chose soil. Using profits from his devices, he bought damaged farmland, not for construction, but for healing. He introduced smart water systems, soil microbes, and drone farming to restore land thought to be dead. He wasn't only providing food, he was reversing desertification and gathering data for future climate technology. Africa's treasure, he believed, was not just in its mines, but in its soil. He trained AI in African languages. Silicon Valley teaches machines in English, Chinese, and computer code. But Maxwell's lab spoke Shona, Yoruba, Swahili, and Amharic. He understood what others ignored. African languages carry unique wisdom that Western algorithms can't process. So he built a lightweight AI engine trained in local languages and traditions, allowing rural communities to talk with technology in their own words. It wasn't only about access, it was about dignity. He made wealth something shared. Maxwell didn't just create devices or jobs, he rethought what wealth meant. Unlike many entrepreneurs who dream of becoming billionaires, Maxwell never planned to be Africa's richest man. His companies worked more like cooperatives. Local people were not just workers, but owners. The wealth he created didn't stay with him. It spread sideways into schools, solar villages, and local manufacturing shops that could make spare parts anywhere. For him, true wealth was not cash. It was freedom, knowledge, energy, and mobility. He dreamed of a free African internet. In a quiet facility surrounded by baobab trees, Maxwell began his boldest project yet. Not a device, but an idea. A fully African internet system with no foreign cables, no rented satellites, and no compromise on privacy or freedom. His plan used a swarm of small satellites powered by his wireless energy system. They would send internet signals to ground stations made in Africa from recycled waste. Each piece was community-owned. Every signal was secure. It was the birth of a digital Africa free from outside control, and the doorway to wealth once stolen away. He changed the African story. Maybe his greatest invention wasn't a machine, but a cultural shift. Maxwell funded African film studios, VR labs, and learning centers. He gave young creators tools to tell their history in their own voices. Animated films about old African inventors, virtual reality about lost kingdoms, and documentaries that challenged the Western view of Africa. Maxwell knew that to reveal Africa's wealth, the world must understand. Africa was never poor. It was only misunderstood. He built the first self-powered city. In rural Malawi, where dirt roads once defined the land, Maxwell built a city like no other. No power lines, no fossil fuels, only buildings running on energy pulled from the air, stored in safe units and shared through smart microgrids. Water was collected from humidity, waste was turned into compost, even traffic lights used Maxwell's wireless system. He didn't wait for governments to go green. He built it himself. When engineers from MIT and Japan visited, they were stunned into silence. He created a new design language. To grow his ideas, Maxwell needed more than machines. He needed people able to build them. So he created Chikumbutso code, a visual system that used simple modular symbols instead of complex text. Even children and people who couldn't read English could follow it. Soon, students in Kenya and retired mechanics in Namibia were making devices using diagrams that looked like music notes or art. Creativity became infrastructure, and infrastructure became equity. He refused the World Bank's billions. One of his bravest choices came when an international financial group offered him a multi-billion deal. The condition? Move operations abroad, give up control, and focus on Western markets first. Maxwell's answer was silent but firm. He stood up and walked out. because to him, Africa wasn't a mine to be drained. It was a future to be grown. His every step was proof that the continent already had what it needed. It only lacked belief. And finally, Africa stepped onto the world stage. At the Future Tech Summit in Geneva, the wealthiest innovators gathered to showcase their next big things. But while they presented AI breakthroughs and space dreams, something unexpected happened. Every screen flickered. A live broadcast appeared, not from Silicon Valley, but from Harare. There stood Maxwell, surrounded by school children building wireless transmitters and energy-harvesting fabrics. He wasn't attending the summit because he was already living the future. In 3 minutes, he didn't ask for money or fame. He simply said, "We no longer wait for permission. Africa is already moving." The audience went silent. And suddenly, the summit's theme, Inventing Tomorrow, no longer belonged only to the West. This was his legacy. Maxwell Chikumbutso had done more than create devices. He had sparked an awakening. Young Africans stopped dreaming of leaving and started dreaming of building at home. The wealth they chased was not only gold or oil, but imagination, resilience, and ancient wisdom. Maxwell didn't just unlock innovation, he unlocked destiny. And by doing so, he didn't change Africa to match the world. He began to shape the world to fit Africa.